Woohoo! One more time. Trick or treat. I smell your feet. You must have been eating too much sugar. Yeah, isn't it interesting how you can actually smell the sweetness? Well, I don't know about you guys, but I have a very good olfactory system in my body. And yeah, there's some people who really have a strong sweet from being diabetic odor that they emit. Whoops. Yay, it's still working. Okay. For those of you who missed what I said on the number 2 video of the evening, a friend of mine just said about a property that he is getting, and that it would be a really cool place to have a retreat. So that is quite the interesting thought of, as I am supposed to be going down to Florida in November. My grandson is turning a year, and I haven't seen the family for almost that. So that would be cool. And then I can check it out and see what he's got going on down there, and see when would be a good time to plan a retreat. I mean, a retreat in Florida sounds good for the most part. Let's see, we're gonna go this way. The fun of working your craft with your hands. Sometimes it works better when you do it in better lighting, but there are times when you just work with what you got, and sometimes good lighting isn't one of them. I ruined a whole sample of glow-in-the-dark t-shirts by doing them when it wasn't a good lighting, the lighted circular fluorescent, and the one outside had burned out, so it wasn't as bright, and I really couldn't see exactly. And I definitely could not see exactly that the samples that I was taking to hopefully get orders from were all ruined. And that was like way upsetting, let me tell you. And it wasn't so bad of finding it out. Prior to driving, what was that? 1,200 miles? I don't know. It was a long drive that I had to go. Say, hang on. I'm pulling this up where I don't have to lay down to do it. So yeah, that one really sucked. You know, if I didn't go to all the expense of and put all my eggs in one basket and, you know, drive for hours, you know, I think it might have been almost 24 to get up to Connecticut to open the box to see that the samples, that the t-shirts that were rushed to me and did not have the dye set in them had then melted all over my quickly dyed glow-in-the-dark t-shirts. Yeah, it was sad. It was really sad. Because it was at a monumental decision that I had to make of what to do. And it was a hard one to make, what to do. You do what's best for the kids. At least that's what I thought I was doing. And what was bad just got worse. And it wasn't pleasant no matter which way you look at it. There we got some kind of a suction action. Is it a suction or is it a vacuum? Probably. Not a suction, probably a hairdryer for the sound and the time being used. Plus, the people where I'm staying, they're going out for Halloween. So just to let you know, I could have gone out. I did have places to go and people to see and things to do, and I just decided to do a live on Halloween. For trick or treat. For telling predictions and prophecy of what I have seen and what I foresee. I mean, really, I'd rather, tell people to go back and look over my work that I've done. And you will see, all kinds of things where I have foreseen and predicted and all that other kind of good stuff. So, whether you choose to believe what I say, that's up to you. But you can say hindsight is foresight. And like I said, if you go back over and look at my work on GLoLady TV on YouTube and also Vimeo, War on Richard Nixon. It's a group on Vimeo, and I was just notified that my law enforcement against prohibition TV show was put into that playlist. So I found that interesting. Trying to think, was it Richard Glow, or I can't remember what the guy's name was who started the group, but in it, my guest, John Amable, he is a former assistant state attorney general from, I think, Massachusetts. And he was going out and being a spokesperson for LEAP, which is the Law Enforcement Against Prohibition. And he, a majority of the members of that organization are retired, whether it's military or government law enforcement type of, who have seen and experienced the war on drugs that has done nothing but destroy society. And it started from Richard Nixon and the war on drugs. And we know it wasn't just Turkey Dick, as he was nicknamed. We know that he was a puppet by those in a secret society that are becoming more and more apparent. So, yeah, sometimes we have to be careful of what we say and how we say it and all that kind of good stuff. Because, yeah, I heard that Hillary's list got longer. And I hear that there's other attacks being made. And you have to look at that karma and what's going on out there and the planetary aspects. And when you're dealing with Neptune in Pisces, you're dealing with a mental illness. So, is it caused by, whatever? I mean, let's take our pick of what could be causing mental illness. I don't think that we can say that there is not at this point in time, a problem. But we can start looking at solutions and stop the criminal justice system from profiting on addictions and alcoholism. That does turn into a chemical imbalance in the brain, hence a mental illness of some sort, because they are not a whole person when they are afflicted. Now, whatever the drug or alcohol is, it's how long do you allow a person to suffer? And some people say you have to let them hit their bottom. But I don't think that that is necessarily true, because I think that a person has to understand the possibility of a bottom and the progression of, and they need to be educated. They need to be educated on what will happen if they continue going on the journey that they're on. And one of the things about the addiction and alcoholism, how they talk about the prognosis, is jails, institutions, and in death. And between the jails, people are very lucky to be placed into an institution where rehabilitation was actually practiced and not just used as a private front for private profit. That seems to be quite a few of the treatment centers that are out there, that as much money as is spent in a criminal justice, in a prison, in the jails, why are they not made into treatment facilities? It's not for, prisons and jails are not for rehabilitation, no matter what they might be trying to smoke and mirror people into thinking. And the ill treatment that is received by those who are incarcerated add to the trauma that most of those who are incarcerated are afflicted with. Because Pelosi's gonna bail out. How many others who have money to wave at whomever is needed, however much is needed, and they get to walk away free and clear. But you have someone who does not have the ability, in order to make a cash bond that is held to the same cash bond as those who can financially afford that cash bond. And it's prejudice. It's crimes against humanity through the criminal justice system. And how many of those who are and have been are in there because of some form of abuse that was never addressed, and therefore Um, is a issue that needs to be addressed and not compounded upon and adding more guilt, remorse, and self pity, not to mention the demoralization of being in a jail or a prison where Stanford experiment has already proven that there is a distinct let me see, how can I put that? I guess I can just put prejudice guards against the inmates. You know, how much more plain can you get than a Stanford experiment? So anyhow, the TV show that I was talking about on Vimeo, if you go to vimeo.com and look up GLoLady, GLoLady, one word, hashtag GLoLady, and you will see my TV show that I did, that I produced at a public access station in Asheville. Now, those I think are more of the recent, or the closest to our forced shutdown by our local government in refusing to give us our funds that were owed in order to silence our voices from exposing corruption, and therefore destroyed my job, my business, not to mention many others. And I consider myself one of the lucky ones who is still living, because there are quite a few producers who gave up trying to get their voice out there. And, you know, to try to be and to serve for the betterment of humanity in whatever capacity that they could. Yeah, I was just thinking of those and the variety of shows that just the ones who have now passed on had produced. You know, it was Rapid Ralph. He was always running the roads of Buncombe County and talking about the history of the road that he was on and the areas and all that kind of good stuff. And then it was Dale, and she had a Christian TV program. And then, let me see, there was Dixie, and Dixie is one of those that I co-produced, and it's What's Really Going On in Western North Carolina. And you can see, I think it's a couple of episodes that actually made it up onto Western North Carolina WNC Community Media Center. I'm not quite sure who owns the YouTube channel at this point in time, but I know that there's still some videos up on there, and I'm not sure about the rest. So, let's see. I'm still working on this, still going together. My tapestry cloak. It's going to be in a stained glass pattern. And once it's all together, then I will show it to you. Other than that, I think I'm just going to be showing you through the pieces going together. Cause some are going together easier than others. Isn't that the truth? Yeah, it's like with everything. When you put it together well, if you have to take it back out again, it's like, oh dang, why did I do it so good the first time? Alterations suck. But it sometimes is much easier to just go ahead and make a whole new whatever it is that you were making rather than to alter something that was already done. I mean, depending on how far and how much time and effort was into it, it's like, well, really, just save it and then you would have to. Why rip out and waste? There was time. There was effort. You will never get back. Just save it. Start over. I have a friend of mine who crochets also. And she is such the perfectionist. But then her crocheting, I can only imagine how many shawls and sweaters and this and that she has made, not to count all the ones that she has torn out in the time that it's taken me to do this. So some people are just way more talented in their work, and I will be the first to admit that I am not the world's greatest crochetist. I don't even know if that's how you call a crocheter a crochetist. Could be, might be, don't know. But that's okay. Crocheting is anything that you do with your hands is really good for the mind body. Whether it's working with plants in a garden, which that is most definitely one of my favorite things to do with my hands outside in a garden. Most definitely. I'm like, oh, did I get that right? Oh no. I was lucky. almost missed the loop. And then you know what I would have had to do? I would have had to redesign instead of ripping. I would have just redesigned. But there again, I'm more of the artist rather than a perfectionist. Although, don't get me wrong on that one either, because that can be part of the problem, is trying to be too perfect in whatever that you are doing. And I have found in being an artist, instead of that perfection and looking at the possibilities of mistakes, it's I prefer to add it into the design and create a new design around that mistake, and usually highlighting it and making it into something special. So I guess now you'll be looking at my cloak and seeing where all the extra special this and that's are located, huh? Although I do have to tell you that no, it wouldn't be correct either, because I have created lots of special this and that's on here. So that would not even be a correct statement. A correct statement will be that this baby is going to be warm when it's finished. And hopefully it will last me the rest of my life, and could possibly even pass down or auctioned off, whichever. Say whichever comes first. Might be auctioned off with my limited collection of works that I have acquired in my life and have managed to keep against all odds. They survived. That's a whole nother story there too. But then I guess I do have a lot of stories. How about you? Do you have as many stories as my tapestry? Or do you have more? Do you have all of your puzzle pieces? Or are you still collecting for your tapestry? What about your marbles? How many marbles you have left? It's something that when I do readings, I tend to give out marbles. That way, when I give a person a reading, they haven't lost all their marbles. So, it's looking like we have been on here for quite a few minutes, and my throat is getting a little bit dry. Ooh, but I didn't finish telling you about the reason. Hold on, please. Thank you for holding on a minute. Because it is very important for the reason that I did want to tell you the rest of the story. And when I started out about LEAP, Law Enforcement Against Prohibition, and what a difference it would make if drugs were in fact legal. And in Oregon, unfortunately, it was 10 years after this interview was recorded that my oldest son, who is mentioned in this video, and he died 2 days after getting out of prison, Oregon State Prison. I don't know all of the details, and that was, I could probably say, the main reason why I wanted to go across the United States with the People's Convoy, and that would be to allow me to go to where my son had died on the street of Eugene, Oregon. And I could never get any definitive answers when I would call out there and speak with different people regarding the same thing, but different stories emerged as to what the facts were. So, looking at, seeing, and knowing that I missed his last phone call, that could have been a deciding factor in the if only, woulda, shoulda, coulda, and anguish there. And then I look at the one explanation as the officer told him to put on a shirt when he got off of a bus at a bus terminal. And it was stated that he clenched his chest and went into the men's room. Now, what happened after that, I don't know, because of what story. And some say it was a security guard. Some say it was another officer. I'm not quite sure what that whole thing was. I don't know if the baggie that he ingested, excuse me, was in the bathroom when he was probably already overdosing if he was clutching his chest. But for fear of going back to prison, if that was indeed one of the officers that he had altercations with in the past, and who would rather arrest him on the spot for whatever reason they could even fabricate in order to profit in that criminal justice system. So, yeah. Now, if my son were still alive, were still addicted, were still trying to survive with the lack of treatment programs, maybe he would still have been alive if he was not in fear of going back to prison. And what did happen behind those bars in prison. I look at the last photo that he sent me, and he really looked happy. He really had a lot of optimism the last time I spoke with him. And it pains me that I did miss his last phone call. And that he never had the chance to live his potential because of a criminal justice system that was created to break down the family unit and therefore profit on the disease and decay in society. So whether it is from the opioid crisis and being prescribed opioids, and therefore they go down into a demoralization of the stigma attached to the moral that others say have to be followed. And those morals are not always a set social norm, standard, whatever. Harm none and do as you will. As long as there is no harm, what is the problem? Why can't we find solutions unless we don't want to find solutions? We have to have want for a solution. And we need a solution. It's that we don't need the solution. Those who need the solution, we've gone through this and we know this like we know the back of our hands. Whether it be through our experience or through our eyes that we have gained, or through hearing, or looking, or researching, or calling to make a change in the criminal justice injustice system. So, yeah, I was really happy to have John Amable and LEAP, Law Enforcement Against Prohibition, on my TV show, and would have continued having them on my TV show, but for the corruption and the cover-up of the corruption in Buncombe County, in their denial of the public access funds for their own personal gain. Now, one of these days there will be an accounting for I have been vindicated in my allegations of her fraud and misappropriation of funds, but not to the extent of the allegations, all of the allegations in my lawsuit. And there is and was a conspiracy, and it is a crimes against humanity that will be addressed. Oh goodness, sex fine biz. Well, beautiful girls here. Well, I guess if that's as far as the crime got to, that can always be a topic the next time, because I have more to say on that industry also. But for this one topic right now, it does hit home personally, because my family has been destroyed by the criminal injustice system. And I know, and I see, and I will hold them accountable before I pass. So, for those of you who want to hold the criminal justice system accountable and to make sure that the money for the opioid epidemic is spent for treatment centers, well, let's do it to it. And then after a break, let's come talk about the sex trade industry. Ooh, is that a trick or is that a treat?